Have you ever heard of the phrase beauty sick? What does it mean to be beauty sick? How are we teaching our kids about their bodies? Today, we talk everything body image related as a precursor for a big conversation this weekend with Professor Renee Engeln. Hello and welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson. Honey, this one hits home pretty close for us. 7 girls in the house, you and our 6 daughters, and the issue of body image.
I haven't read the book, but after today's interview, I am really, it's intrigued me.
Yeah, Beauty Sick, How the Cultural Obsession with Appearance Hurts Girls and Women. This is a book that I read several years ago. I would say it's in my top 10 books of all time.
I think your top 10 includes
40 books.
Yeah.
No, this is like, if we were to throw out books from my library, this would be one that I would say it sits on the shelf. It's not going anywhere. This one must stay. It would be one of the last ones that I'd get rid of. It's such a profoundly good book. A couple of our daughters have read it now, and like you said, this is one that I reckon you'll gobble it up. Beauty Sick by Renee Engeln, Northwestern University academic. Anyway, I'm going to play the whole interview on Saturday. It's one for anyone who cares about the body image stuff to check out. But I just wanted to share 3 things that she said in the interview that I think are super important. The first thing that she said, and I'd really love to get your reaction to this, was I was talking to her about the idea of being beauty sick. What does it mean to be beauty sick? And she raised this idea of having the mirror, rather than in front of you in the living room or the bathroom, having the mirror in your head.
We've gone from having a culture that's always looking at women, that's always commenting on how they look. We've gone from that coming from the outside to a point where we've internalized it and we do that to ourselves. So I try to stay away from academic jargon, but there's a term that I always need to use, even though it's jargon, which is self-objectification, right? So the idea is if the world treats you like an object long enough and with enough intensity, that eventually you see yourself that way. Right? You don't need to be looking in the mirror because it's in your head. And so you're always monitoring how you look. You're always aware. It's distracting. It's distressing, right? It crops up in inopportune times. It keeps you from living the life that's more consistent with your values. So that's what I mean when I say beauty sick, is that you've got that mirror stuck in your head and it's causing you trouble. And it's not your fault. That's always the thing I want to say. This is not something wrong with individual girls and women. It's something wrong with our culture.
Something wrong with our culture. Self-objectification. She speaks so vividly. These words feel like they whack me between the eyes.
I was having a conversation with a group of teenage girls recently, and they were acknowledging the idea of having 2 different social media accounts. One they call their spam account and the other one was their official site, for want of a better word. And as adults in the room, a few of us were like, but I don't understand. Why do you need a spam account?
And there's all that extra work you've got to do as well,
100%.
Right?
And they said the spam account is just for a handful of people that they trust, that they can kind of share anything. They don't have to filter it. They don't have to make sure that, they're centered in the frame or that their hair's done a certain way or they're wearing the right clothes. There's no filtering going in there. They just put the photos there that they like. Their main account requires so much effort,
curation, and care
factor before they'll even post a photo, let alone post multiples. And when we kind of dug a little deeper, they started showing us the kinds of photos they'd put on their spam account. Well, they're just your everyday photos. They're having fun. They're eating food with a friend. They've, kind of wrapped themselves up in a scarf because it's cold. But oh no, I definitely couldn't put that on my main account. And so when you listen to what she's saying, this idea that the mirror is actually in our heads, we're going through that process.
Seeing yourself
without anyone
object.
Else's input.
All that self-monitoring.
It's insane.
It's exhausting. Yeah, totally. During the interview, we talk about a couple of things that we're not going to play now, like TV women who have to wear something different every time and still get absolutely mocked mercilessly for any of their clothing choices, whereas a guy like Karl Stefanovic wears the same suit and tie every day for a year and nobody says a thing. Like you said, exhausting, the amount of effort that goes into appearance. There is something wrong with the culture.
Having been on TV, you will have experienced this. How long does it take you to do hair and makeup?
So I'm sure that Ali Langdon won't mind me saying this, but on parental guidance, she is in the studio. So we'll do a full day of recording. Usually starts around about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and it finishes at about 6:30, 7 p.m. Ali has to be at the studio for 7 because hair and makeup takes that long. And Ali is naturally beautiful. She doesn't, quote unquote, need any of that, but that's what TV requires. That's what's necessary. So she'll be there from 7. I rock up at 8:15 and I'm in the studio by 8:30.
That's because you're just naturally beautiful.
It's got no. I mean, I think it's because there's nothing that they can do about how I look, so they just shrug their shoulders and say, "Well, that just is what it is."
But this is what I'm talking about. There is such an unfair.
The beauty standard is completely different from men versus women. Yeah, totally. And Renee's point, the self-monitoring, the self-objectification. If the world treats you like that long enough, you start to treat yourself like that. It's what value am I bringing to the world based on my physical appearance?
I don't know how long ago this story came up, but Pamela Anderson hit the news because she has gone out in public without makeup.
That was like 4 or 5 months ago or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw her on the Drew Barrymore show, and Drew did exactly the same thing. She came on, and when I very first saw it, not knowing what it was, I'm like, wow, what's wrong with Drew? She looks really unwell.
You're right, okay.
And then obviously watched it and started to see it unfold, and she started pulling out all of her hair extensions and stuff, and just the acknowledgement that there's just this such a huge expectation on women to look a certain way, no matter how old they are. And as you go down the street, I'm watching more and more older women who you can tell have had work done, like multiple thousands and thousands of dollars of work, because there's this emphasis that they have to keep up an image.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, again, I just come back to that word exhausting. I just feel exhausted thinking about the effort that's required to keep up with this image.
And that's why I felt like this conversation was so important. On Saturday, we'll talk about what this means for parents who are raising girls specifically, but also for boys who may unknowingly expect that the females that they spend time with will be spending additional time on their appearance because that's the expectation. There's a handful of other things that I wanted to share. I had several audio grabs from the interview, but because time's getting away from us already, after the break, I want to get really practical because this is the podcast that offers real parenting solutions every day. After the break, we're going to hear what Renee has to say about how to send positive and uplifting messages about bodies to your kids. Okay, Kylie, Renee and I were talking about the concept of what it is to be ladylike. Should we be teaching girls to be ladylike based on these issues? Here's what she said.
I find that whole phrase really problematic because what you're teaching your girls when you say that is stay small, right? Don't take up space. Don't move. Don't learn to use your body. Don't stretch it. Don't trust it. Instead, from the beginning, think of your body in terms of how it looks to other people. Does it look appropriate? Does it look modest? If you want them to look modest, then put them in shorts so they can move however they want, right? And when you look at infants, when they're a little older, they start to crawl. It's actually quite hard for a lot of babies to crawl in skirts and dresses, right? And even that is something we don't think about. Just imagine it. Imagine now trying to crawl in a dress versus a pair of pants or a pair of shorts, right? So how we dress girls in such a way that requires constant fussing and monitoring, it has a real impact on how they grow up to feel about their bodies.
I wish I was a part of this conversation. This is just crazy. I've never thought about it like this, but I love that idea that we teach our girls to stay small.
When we focus on their bodies and
to not take up space. Holy smokes. I'm just thinking, honestly, my mind is exploding just listening to her talk and the acknowledgement that in that one phrase, we've taught them that their bodies are fragile. Essentially, when you think of a Ladylike, I think of tea parties and china cups, and I think of fragility.
Yeah.
And yet when we have a boy, we're telling them to use those bodies and use every muscle in their bodies and climb trees and take risks and stretch and grow. And yet that's not what we're expecting over girls, and we wonder why we've got such a big divide.
So much that I want to say right now, but that's actually a perfect segue to the last thing that I wanted to share, which is what messages should we be sending to our children, male and female, about their bodies?
I think especially for young children, because they're learning to use their bodies, right? So encourage them to think about their bodies not from this objectified perspective, not from how do they look to other people, but from the perspective of what do they do for you? What do they allow you to experience? What do they allow you to feel? I've had some people say to me, oh, that's ableist, right? Because what if you're disabled? But I don't mean that you have to be a marathon runner to appreciate what your body does. Like, our bodies do all kinds of things, right? They allow for creativity and communication. They allow us to connect with other people. If you have children who are into athletics of any kind, right? They allow that sort of thing. Bodies are super cool, right? So teach your children about how cool they are, like all the amazing things they can do, and how they can care for their bodies so that they can keep doing cool things, but not so that they can look good to other people, right? The best advice is to just keep those conversations off the table. We just don't have them.
So I hear that, and I think even simpler, bodies can hug. Bodies can smile.
So I can't believe you said that.
Oh,
I
were you gonna say
literally
that?
have been sitting here just thinking that comment she made about being accused of being ableist. And as I was sitting there thinking about it, I was like, just the fact that I can smell,
Yeah.
homemade cookies, or
I can walk along the beach and enjoy the ocean
my
and look at the
touch
horizon.
can convey love and appreciation to somebody that I care about. There are just so many beautiful things that our bodies can do, and it's not about how they look that is able to convey those things or enable us to experience things in life.
Yeah, we get caught up in the wrong stuff. It's just a great conversation. I wish you'd been part of it as well, but you don't love interviews, so I did it on my own. Renee Engeln, Professor Renee Engeln, the full-length conversation will be played on Saturday for your casual, easy weekend listening about body image and our beauty-sick society. Please join us on the weekend for that great discussion. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. More information and resources are available to make your family happier at happyfamilies.com.au.